scared me then. I was like, what's going on? So we are recording. Welcome to the gratitude session. The gratitude is about appreciating what we have and noticing key things, because unfortunately, this is where I am a tiny bit negative, just a smidge. You don't know what you've got until it's gone. Okay, and I put this picture of a toilet roll in here just because it kind of makes things a bit light-hearted. I don't know about any of you, but I really appreciate it now when I can buy toilet roll, because it's still sometimes not in my shop. Okay, but that's like a funny way of looking at it. Okay, because the thing is with life, unfortunately, you don't always appreciate things until they're gone. Okay, and I know it's a bit of a harsh thing to say, because people always say to me, you're so positive, and I am in general, but I'm also realistic. Okay, so I think it's really important, this, and it's so easy to do. Anyone can do it. So here's a few ideas for you, okay, because some of you I know practice this a lot already. Preach the converted here, okay, so I know some of you will do it. And some of you have probably not really heard of it before. Sounds a bit fluffy. What's all that about? So here's just a couple of ideas. So it could be that you woke up this morning, you had a nice text on your phone, you checked the traffic on the way to work, and there isn't any, okay? It's about noticing quite specific things. So often when I say to people, what are you grateful for? And people will go, well, I've got a roof over my head. Classics, what everyone always says to me, I've got a job. And it's like, okay, but what about that job today that you like? Okay, it's about being quite specific if you can. Okay, that's really the challenge there, because you have to be specific, and it has to be kind of something different. Okay, most days you can't say something specific but like the same thing every day. Okay, and you need to try and challenge yourself a little bit. And one of the reasons for this, again, this is a bit morbid sometimes, I do apologise, but I love a good podcast, right? And I'm sure some of you have heard of Brené Brown. Okay, Brené Brown is like a top social science researcher. She's done loads of famous TED Talks. And she said she did a lot of work with people that were bereaved, and bereavement. And she said, you know, when she asked her bereavement groups, what do you miss? It was never the big things. It was never like, oh, I miss, you know, our wedding day. Okay, it was a really good day, but that's not something I've missed. The things I miss are the little things. So, for example, one lady said she missed the way her husband laid the table at night. Another guy said that he missed the way his girlfriend's face was all scrunched up when she woke up. So it's often these little things, okay? So I want us to try and think about what they are. And again, this is just a 20-minute taster. I could do hours talking about this, okay? And today it's all about trying to just inspire you to just think maybe outside the little box that we're in, you know, just to think, what are we grateful for? And then if you practice it on a daily basis, then magical. The magic can happen. So there's tons of benefits, okay? And I'm not going to go through every single one, because again, I'll be here for way too long. You can read some of these, okay? There is loads of research and evidence now to say stuff like mindfulness and gratitude is super good for your mental health, but it actually does rewire your brain. Now, often when I do talks like this, people are a bit like, oh, it's a bit fluffy for my liking. You know, where's the evidence? Where's the research? And it actually does rewire your brain. So you might have heard of like strengthening like neurotransmitters, rewiring, neuroplasticity. So for example, when we feel good, you have more dopamine and serotonin trapped in your brain that makes you feel good. Now, serotonin is often what's found in antidepressants. So, you know, bit of gratitude or popping a pill, like, you know, I know what I prefer, and I'm not knocking pills, by the way. I'm just saying that that's kind of like an interesting comparison, right? Also, your prefrontal cortex strengthens the more you do this stuff, okay? And if it's strengthened, what happens is it retains more positive experiences and more positive thinking. And when you do get negative things happen, adverse experiences, whatever it might be, you are less likely to retain it or keep hold of it in your brain for longer, which I think is quite interesting. So there are lots and lots of benefits. If you struggle with sleep, for example, do a bit before you go to bed, because then you sleep better, don't you, when you're less stressed, you know? So I've done this with a friend of mine. I've got a really good friend, married couple, basically. They've had a child during lockdown and it's almost broken them. And I saw them not long ago and I said, how are you guys doing? And they were like, we're not good. Like, this is really hard work. You know, they haven't long been married either, really, about 5 years. So I said, right, I'm going to give you a little challenge. And I'll tell you what, guys, if you want a little challenge, I would do this anyway, okay? You don't need to be broken to try and fix yourself, okay? I would really encourage people to be really proactive about their mental health or mental ill health, whatever you want to call it, all the time, because it'll keep you really resilient. So the challenge I gave my friends that are a married couple with a toddler, so before you go to bed, every single night, say something you're grateful for. And it doesn't have to be about each other, because I didn't want it to become like a weird competition, because that could turn into a bit of a nightmare. And they do. And they said they've been doing it for only 6 weeks. They said the first 2 weeks they felt really strange, but they had to, they knew I'd go mad if they didn't. So I chased them up. I was like, right, after a month, they did it once. And I said, right, challenge after a month is to maybe try and say 2 things, okay? Because it's about making this a habit. So this is free to do. It's pretty easy. It's not too difficult. And the hard part really is just remembering and actually wanting to do it, okay? If you look into what creates a habit, so something that's lasting, because we all sometimes want to create a habit, it takes about 3 months. It's quite a long time. If you look online, like get a new habit within a month, that's very unlikely. It's normally 3 months, okay? Now, I've been doing this for years, and I can probably name like 30 in the morning, 30 before I go to bed, things that I'm grateful for. Okay, that's bonkers, I know, but bearing in mind, I've been doing it for a long time. Once you've been doing it for a long time, evidence again says that you actually go to search for things that you're grateful for, which I think is marvelous. I think that's amazing. And if you think about it, if you're naturally quite positive and you're seeing the best in things, how can you feel really down in mood, or how can you feel stressed, you know? And I don't want to ever take away what's happening at the moment, because it's obviously awful. And my mum I went for a walk with my mum earlier, and she's like, oh, this guy in Russia is nuts. And I said, aren't you grateful that we don't have that? She's like, she's like, oh, don't think about that. I said, I know people moan about our government, but aren't you grateful that we're doing really well with, like, vaccinations and stuff? Because we all love a moan and a bit of drama sometimes, okay, which is, I guess, a bit healthy, a little bit, okay? But you have to be careful, the limit there. And that would be a really good tip, by the way. If you do ever feel affected by the media, I'm not saying you've got to, like, not ever watch it, because I don't. And that's one of the reasons why I'm really chilled, is because I limit my media big time, because I find I get really affected if I watch it. So the little tip for you, if you ever do feel like it's really affecting you, then just limit what you do, limit the exposure, okay? So there's tons and tons of benefits to practicing gratitude. I just want to just a couple more slides left in terms of how to practice it. So it could be, I do it when I drive. So I'm normally driving on my own, have a good half an hour in the car, and that's it. So I've got nothing else to do, and I feel guilty for just doing one thing. So I think, okay, well, while I'm driving, I shall think about something that I'm grateful for. There's a really, really good app that you can download called the 5-Minute Journal app, and it gives you little prompts every day. So that's good if you feel like you need something on your phone. Or you can write it down. I mean, I just say it out loud, but it's what works for you. You could also, if you want, do this with your partner, like I said about my friends, or you could do it over dinner. You could do it as like every Friday night thing, or every Monday night, or Monday's good because it starts the week off. I did it with some kids in school who were basically just on the border of getting excluded, because I do loads of stuff in schools, and I thought I would try a little challenge with some young people to do it around the table over dinner. And the young people were like, oh, really? You know, and I was like, please, just have a go for a couple of weeks. And they did. These children who were not really engaging in school, not engaging with their family, they did it for, you know, a good few weeks, and they said they really noticed that the family were getting on a lot better. Yeah, it's a great one to do with your partner. Like, I have a new partner, right? And even now he's like, come on then, what are we doing? What are we saying what we're grateful for? And he inspires me now, because it's like ripple effect, you know, because we sometimes forget that we are very lucky compared to most, okay? You know, imagine being in the pandemic, being deaf, for example, because I used to be half deaf. I don't know if any of you know that, but I used to rely on touch and a lot of like lip reading. You know, imagine being in the pandemic and not being able to touch, you know, not being able to be around people. You know, that's just one example, okay? We are very lucky compared to most, okay? And we have to really appreciate that. That's me going on my high horse. But just some final thoughts then, because this is literally just a taster, because I love giving a little sprinkle of hope to people, really. You know, don't ever take anything for granted. Remember what you have as a gift. It's like as soon as Rob said about his voice, I almost wanted to say, yeah, but you're lucky you have a voice, you know. But that's me being a dick. But I just, we are very lucky. You know, I had really bad arthritis a few years ago. I couldn't walk. So now when I walk, I'm really grateful for my feet, you know. So remember, because you never know what's around the corner, okay? And it is all about practice. And just give it a go. I know some of you do it already. You know, we've had a chat with Rob about the sunset, you know, stuff like that. You know, it's beautiful. And I always think I'm so lucky I can see those colours, you know, because some people don't have that. They aren't able to. That's me going on my high horse about gratitude. I hope it's inspired some of you. That's me in a nutshell, as you can see, spreading lots of love. All my sort of experience and stuff like that. So I will stop sharing and then see if anyone's got any comments. Well, you're all still there, so no one dropped off.
We've got more people, more than we started with, Stacey.
Oh, what's up?
Thank you. That was fantastic. I knew we could rely on you for a good, lively, high energy presentation. So
I tried.
Thanks. So not surprisingly, Caroline is right there with a comment.
That was brilliant, Stacey. Absolutely brilliant. And there's nothing good about Ukraine, but doesn't it make you grateful for the fact we live here? I appreciate everything. I live backing on facing onto the forest, and I was looking out the window the other day, and it's just so beautiful. And I can't imagine what it must be like to have to pick up the two things you can put in a little wheelie bag, and that's all you can take. So all this nonsense about buying ornaments, I don't know why we bother, you know, get down to what matters. That was absolutely brilliant.
Lovely. I'm glad you liked it. I try not to be too positive, because sometimes people are they feel like I'm being insensitive to stuff, and I never am, by the way, you know, but yeah, I'm glad you thought it was right. You right, Gillian?
Yeah, no, all good. I just wanted to tell you just a thing that we're grateful for on this side from South Africa. In South Africa, you don't get any post, okay, because it just gets stolen or lost. So when I first got here and I got post to the post box, I was like so excited. And still every time the postman comes, it's like such a joy that he actually brings you the post. So yeah, it's something like really simple like that, because otherwise, you know, you've got to have a post box, you've got to drive miles to go and get your own post and that type of thing. So just for things that actually work.
Love that.
Great. Feeling grateful every time the postman arrives. That's a good start.
Yeah, it's lovely. But we are lucky, aren't we? We forget how lucky we are.
Like the simple things, yeah, that we take for granted here, but in other countries, you don't have that, you know. So yeah.
Exactly.
It's definitely it's a mindset thing that needs to kind of permeate through your day. But I'd never thought about the tip you gave about practicing gratitude just before you go to bed. I mean, it's a great idea to set it in your mind when you start. Caroline, is that your hand up fresh? Yes, it is.
I'm afraid it is. Can I tell you something? I've never forgotten to be grateful for. When in 1992, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and I couldn't walk for a while, and I couldn't drive for 2 years. And then I discovered hand controls, and I got in the car and drove off. And even now, I get so excited going anywhere. And I love what, you know, when you're in 3 lanes moving slowly, all going along. I love it. Other people call it a traffic jam. I think it's a regal escort that I have as I go along. But I've never forgotten it. And it's because for a while I couldn't do it. So there you are.
Oh, turn every traffic jam into a regal escort.
It's true though. You don't always appreciate what you got until it's gone, you know. So
yeah,
love it.
Okay,
Rob, I'm starting to lose the plot, I think, actually.
Serena's got her hand up, Rob.
Okay, and so has Rob, but yeah, let's go with Serena first, then we'll come back to you, Rob.
Thank you. So first of all, I loved all that, Stacey. Thank you very much. I'm very into gratitude, and 2 things that came out, and something that Caroline just mentioned in terms of something I speak to my clients about, especially obviously when they're pregnant, is that the last thing you read or watch or hear before you go to bed or before you go to sleep is what your mind processes at night. So actually, I often say to people, you know, don't watch the 10 o'clock news, but please just don't watch it, or don't watch Line of Duty or something quite dramatic, which, you know, normally I love that kind of stuff. But when you're pregnant, it actually has an adverse effect because your subconscious mind is so active without realizing it that all that stuff takes in. So, you know, writing your journal at night and thinking about the gratitude things, even, you know, I know you said you like speaking out loud. I'm writing. If I write it down, it kind of sticks, type thing. And another thing on a personal note, being grateful for everyday things. So my godson just finished 3 years, 3 months cancer treatment, and he had his final surgery last week, and his mother, my best friend, sent me a picture of him in the bubble bath. So the first bubble bath he's been able to have without his Hickman line in that time. And so it's kind of like, it's a huge deal, obviously, and I'm aware of that. But, you know, in terms of, from a parent perspective, when you've got kids going completely berserk at the end of the day at bath time, and sometimes you're like, oh, just bath time. But actually, when you realize that little tiny experience for that one child is actually pretty huge. So I'm a big fan of gratitude. So thank you very much for today as well.
Thanks, Serena. And I can see your point about the Hickman line. My partner's got one in his chest at the moment, and you're right. Stupid things like not being able to have a full bath are they're quite a big deal. Anyway, let's not get too heavy on that one. Rob, you manage a team of people at Utility Warehouse. You must have to work on mindset quite a bit with folk.
Oh my goodness me. Yeah, I think, do you know, one thing, Stacey, and I loved your presentation, thank you very much. One of the biggest things I try to say to a lot of people, if you want to experience gratitude, go and work for a charity. And I do so much for charities, and sometimes I live comfortably, but when you work for a charity, whether it's homeless, refuge for women, these are some of the ones I work with, the Royal British Legion, it really brings you down to that gratitude state where you kind of look around you and go, do you know what? These guys haven't even got a roof over their head, or they're being beaten up by their partners, or crisis at Christmas. I work with them for a whole month, and it really you come away at night, or you go on a holiday, you can just sit there and go, I'm really grateful for where I am, but you know, I think we need to give back more. I think one thing charities rely on more so is volunteers more than the money. People like to donate, but volunteers is one thing we all shout out for. So if you really want to appreciate gratitude, just spend an hour a week doing something for a charity, and it's very humbling, and you go away at night and appreciate everything you've got in your lives, but you can help so many other people with your positivity and encouragement and support as well.
Yeah, amen to that one, Rob. That's a really fantastic point. I mean, I do a bit of volunteering at Lyndhurst Community Centre, and again, yeah, you see, we get old folk coming in for the monthly lunch, and one of them said, this is the only time I get out in the course of a month, and stuff like that. You feel like you're giving a bit back, and it helps you manage your own perspective. Great point, Rob. Indeed. Quite lively stuff going on in the chat as well. Thanks everyone for that. Any other thoughts that someone would like to put in?
I think just coming back to running a team there, Rob and Stacey, obviously if you've got guys and girls you employ, do you know what? Sometimes just take time out with them to have a coffee and have a real heart-to-heart, because half the time we don't know what's going on in people's lives, and people hide depression very easily nowadays, I think. And by having a coffee and a chat, you can put a physical arm around them, or just a metaphor, a mental arm around them, and just help them get through these difficult times. And there's a lot to be said about what Stacey's gone through. About, it's very easy for us to go, oh, I'm healthy and all that. That's nice, but sometimes the real impact is just helping others, as well.
That's a great point, and we have lost some of that during lockdown, and equally we've discovered a lot of positives, but we start to get back into face-to-face. Okay, I've got Maggie, Rose and Caroline. So Maggie Rose, please.
Thanks, Rob. So a question and also just something to share. The question is, and forgive me, it may be because I joined late today, but I'm just wondering to the point that Rob was making about giving back, what as a community we're doing in any way in support of the Ukraine-Russia situation. It's just a question. There's lots of appeals and stuff out there, and I just wondered, is there anything we're doing or not? And it would be great to know if there is, to contribute to that in any way. And secondly, the thought inspired by Stacey, what I was hearing you talk about yesterday. I was with a team, and we started the day. It was a day and a half business meeting, usual team stuff. And but we started the day by all being in a circle, standing up together, and just saying, what do we feel grateful for? And whether that's the past year of working together and what we've achieved, or whether it's in relation to what's happening in the world, or something personal to share. It was a really powerful intervention. It was not only what we felt grateful for, but also what we hoped for over the coming day and a half that we were together, and just simply standing in a circle for 20 minutes each, taking turn, was very bonding, as well as very supportive to one another, as well as acknowledging things that we wouldn't have covered in the normal business agenda. So just wanted to share that as an idea, if that's useful to anybody else with their teams.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that teamwork point. To come back to your original question, I don't know of specifically what locally is going on to be supported on the Ukraine front, but there's lots shaping up at the moment. You can see it on social media, and I'm sure at some point soon we'll see what is looking like the best way of supporting locally. And again, I see Jane's posted in the chat about that. Caroline.
Thank you.
It's a bit outside the box, this one, but I love epigenetics. I've researched all the time, which is essentially the story of how baby birds know how to fly. That's a layman's language, because babies on the way, so this is for Serena, babies on the way pick up things. So they know how to feed and they know how to grip on, but they also do pick up other things. And when I work with adults, it's not uncommon for the problem to go way back to in the womb. And I always wish the parents would know about that. So rather than have an argument with a baby on the way, what a lovely way to do it, with gratitude. So what are you teaching your little one on the way? So it's been marvelous. Very, very, very good. Thank you.
Can I add to that point? Is that okay? Just because you've just mentioned it. So I actually did a webinar last night, or followed a webinar, and the lady was talking about this in great depth, actually. So it's funny you bring that up. And she was saying that, we can't, you have to find that balance between cortisol and oxytocin. So cortisol is obviously the stress hormone, and oxytocin is the hormone of love. So that's kind of what makes us happy. And if, let's take, for example, the ladies in Ukraine at the moment who are expecting, because there are thousands of them, they are in a cortisol fight or flight continuous mode. And they won't be able to do this, I don't expect, right now, because it's too much. But, the lady last night was saying that if you take 15-minute periods 3 times a day, 2 to 3 times a day, and it probably fits in with what Stacey would recommend generally, I suppose, anyway, whether you're not pregnant or not. Just to focus on, they call it fetal love. So just chatting to your baby and talking about how much you're looking forward to meeting them, or, you know, about what you're grateful for, or the love you have in the world, etc. It actually feeds into that, into the baby. And as you say, it can be generational, because a depressed grandmother can actually feed down to the great grandchild, etc. So there's a lot more research, but it is fascinating how much gratitude and love has an effect on everybody from the fetal stages.
My goodness, that's certainly going a long way back to basics. But I really
sorry.
No, that was a backhanded thank you. I really loved the point that Stacey made about what she said. You don't have to be broken to try and fix yourself. I thought it was
I wrote that down
for all of us.
Yeah.
So that was.
I said it because what happens is people wait till it's crisis. So, you know, have a think now. How full is your tank? You know, don't think, oh, it's only a quarter, so I better do something about it. Like, why feel okay when you could feel really bloody great all the bloody time, which I do, if I'm honest. Like, I feel wonderful, but it's because I work at it all the time, and I also prioritize it as well. I think that's the key thing as well.
Okay, any more points on gratitude coming forward from folk? Okay. Yeah. Andrew.
Yeah, just a small one on the sort of random acts of human kindness, really, and how big that can be. I just booked a parking space the other day, you know, through the app, my parking app, and the guy took the time to text me to say, "Hi, Andrew, you've booked my parking space. This is the directions. If I can help you in any way, just give me a call. This is my door," you know. And that just lifted me for the whole day, you know, just that little thing, thinking that bloke has taken that trouble for his £4.25 he's going to get from it. Well, he won't get that, but, you know, and it just really lifted me. But one thing I was going to ask you, Stacey, was you're saying about expressing gratitude, and I know that I'm not very good at it. I've got some fantastic staff, and I really want to tell them how I feel about them, and I just not very good at getting that across. So have you got any little tips?
Yeah, definitely. So you could just give them a little thank you card, yeah, which says it all, and just say, just a little note to say, you are awesome. You could also, if any of you've got like, you could do this at home or an office, you could actually write on the mirror, just a reminder, you are awesome. Yeah, because that's just super bloody cute, isn't it? Imagine, and again, Andrew, you said about that little thing made your day. We forget how these tiny little things of kindness and appreciation. Like I had a little random act of kindness. Someone dropped me a little self-care box. It was a Lush box. The Lush box actually come outside my house. And that was last year. And that was one of the highlights of my year, let alone day. So yeah, Andrew, just get him a nice little thank you card. Yeah, definitely.
Will do.
Okay, right. Thanks. Jane's helpfully posted a couple of things in the chat. Take a look at her Lymington.com newsletter at the end of this week, because she'll be listing the various ways in which we can contribute locally to support those poor people in Ukraine. And specifically, she's saying that Lymington Rotarians are doing their bit as well. Anything else to add to that, Jane?
No, I'm in the process of gathering lots of information. There's lots of hyper-local stuff as well. But I mean, obviously, the main thing that most of us will be able to do is just donate to the Red Cross directly.
Yeah. Okay. So if you've got anything that you'd like to let Jane know about to include as ways of supporting our fellow.
Thank you, Rod. That's a very good point. If anybody does have anything, yeah, just drop me a line and I'll include it.
Okay. Right. So
Caroline would like to say something.
Caroline.
I'm on a roll here. Following up on Andrew's question and Stacey's last comment, I did a lot of work with GP surgeries and the public sector, things like housing departments and planning and things like that. And there were so often people there who were really stressed by their job, and they said, we just wish somebody would say thank you. So Andrew, if you just said thank you to them for doing what they do, or I appreciate you, honestly, that's all they wanted, and they would have been happy as anything. It would have helped them. Thank you.
And Sandrine, you got your hand up.
Yeah, just a really quick one. I mean, we're talking about gratitude, and then lots of you have been talking about kindness. And so we work with children, younger students, all ages, in fact. But our motto is care, inspire, achieve, because it really doesn't matter what you teach, the subject, the level of the student, the magic ingredient. Every time it's the kindness and the intention. And it's unbelievable how much we can do with so little, in fact. And, you don't have talking about gratefulness and being grateful because, we can see suffering and sing, and sadly, it seems, there's always a light and the dark, and we need to find that middle way to balance everything, because we don't seem to be in a world where there will only be light and happiness. But I think kindness is really the entrance to that middle way. And with children, it works every time. I just wish that if we can all instill that in our children, one day we'll be in a world where we can really walk on the middle way more, because it's truly awful what's happening. Yeah.
And Sandrine, your work with children, you can do so much more than just teach them a foreign language or whatever.
Exactly. We do everything. I mean, but yeah, it's really not about the subject. It's a human business first and foremost. And in one-to-one, obviously, you have a different relationship that in the classroom. That's why tutoring work, actually, because you are able to bring that humanity in the relationship, that one-to-one, that yesterday I just finished a course with children, and I was just I hate saying goodbye, because you get you get so close. I was in tears. It was just ridiculous. These poor kids, they must have thought, but it's the same, because you really care for them, and when you care, you trigger something, and that's what people do when they do charity work. And I wish we didn't have to do that, but that's the way of the world. Anyway, thank you for the presentation. Stacey, it was great.
Good. I'm sure everyone else in this room will join us in thanking Stacey for that lovely, inspiring